Good afternoon. My name is Claire Marshall. Can you tell me your full name, please?
Yes, it's Tobias Brandt.
Thank you. And what shall I call you?
Please call me Tobias.
Where are you from?
I'm from Hamburg in Germany.
Can I see your identification?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. That's fine. In this first part, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. Now, do you work or are you a student?
I currently work. I've been working for about 4 to 5 years now.
Do you enjoy your work?
Yes, I absolutely love my job. I'm lucky enough to have a job that includes one of my biggest hobbies, cooking. So I look forward to going to work every day, which I don't think is the case for a lot of people my age.
Is your work difficult?
My job is difficult in a sense that I haven't been doing it for so long. So there's a lot to learn. Fortunately, my boss is really kind and very generous with sharing her knowledge. It's the kind of work that you have to do for a long time before you get good at it, and you have to be able to work quickly. It's challenging but enjoyable. You can pick up a lot of things quickly, but it takes many years to become an expert.
Do you prefer working to studying?
I prefer working, as there were quite a lot of subjects at school that I didn't especially like. I wasn't particularly academic, and it always seemed that I was learning subjects that had no relevance to my everyday life. For example, I had to study Latin. I also like the fact that I can earn my own money and I'm not reliant on my parents anymore.
Now let's talk about happiness. What makes you feel happy?
To be honest, it's very dependent on the day. Sometimes it can be a song on the radio. More often than not, it's seeing my friends, but it definitely depends on what kind of mood I'm in. Mostly it's the small things in life. Just cooking a simple meal for people, it's something I can do and something that I know. Cooking a good meal, whether it's for people in my house or my family, it's a great way of bringing people together.
Does the weather affect your happiness?
Yes, definitely. I think when I open my curtains, as soon as I wake up and it's sunny, I definitely feel more inclined to have a spring in my step. It puts me in a good mood for the whole day, and I feel more like smiling and laughing.
Are you happier now than when you were younger?
I think it is. Happiness changes. I think when you're younger, you can probably find happiness in most things because you don't have many responsibilities, and childhood is all about happiness. Whereas now it's less shallow, and you have to kind of carve out your own happiness.
Do you think the things that make you happy will change as you get older?
Yes, I think your priorities change. And things that made me happy when I was 15 no longer make me happy now. So I'm definitely aware that my happiness will change.
Let's talk about clothes. Do you enjoy buying new clothes?
Not particularly. I find the whole experience of going shopping stressful, to be honest. Especially when the shops are busy. It's also hard to find clothes that I like, and even when I find something, I have to try it on and make sure it fits. I'd rather get stuff online and return it if it's not the right size.
Do you ever borrow other people's clothes?
Yes, I live with friends, so I borrow lots of people's clothes. Luckily, a couple of my housemates are similar size to me, and I often borrow one of their shirts if I'm going out in the evening. I think it's a good idea to borrow clothes if you can, as it saves spending money on new things, and it's also better for the environment not to buy as much.
Do you like the same types of clothes now as when you were younger?
No, absolutely not. When I was a child, I used to wear very colorful things, although it was my parents who chose my outfits then, not me. Now I mainly wear plain things rather than patterned, and I prefer dark colors.
Why are so many people interested in fashion?
For lots of people, I guess, it's a way of expressing who they are, showing their personality in the clothes they wear. Some people like to follow fashion and keep up to date with the latest trends, and they take an interest in new designs, but I don't really keep up with all that myself.
Thank you. Now I'm going to give you a topic. I want you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you have 1 minute to plan what to say. You can make notes if you wish. Do you understand?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Here is some paper and a pencil for making notes. And here is your topic. I'd like you to describe a news story you have heard about recently. All right? Remember, you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, so don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start now, please?
Yes. Okay. So I'd like to tell you about a news story that I read about. I came across this last weekend. I was just browsing a couple of news websites when I clicked on this particular article. So the story was about how technology is changing the way that we live and work. There have been so many developments in the last few years, and the article described how businesses now often use social media for marketing, recruitment, and communication, which is quite different from in the past. Also things like stock control. So, for example, many companies use sophisticated software programs to monitor how much stock they have and to order new stock and let customers know what's available. These jobs used to be done by people, of course, so making these roles redundant could be seen as a bad thing. On the other hand, it also means companies are generally more efficient with less wastage and faster communication. The news article mentioned how there could be big changes in employment patterns in the future, so fewer people will be involved in administrative tasks, but instead people will be needed for programming computers to take over those tasks. Another impact of technology is that people are increasingly able to work from home, and I was surprised to read how many people are doing that. Obviously, that means less commuting, more flexible working hours, which can be seen as positives. The article definitely focused on the benefits of technology rather than any drawbacks, and predicted a huge shift away from traditional offices and towards home working for all kinds of jobs in the future. So, how did this story make me feel? Surprised, I guess. I had no idea.
Thank you. Have you told other people about this news story?
Yes, I spoke about it with a few of my friends. I think it's quite topical at the moment, so a lot of people are interested in it, to be honest.
Thank you. Please give me the booklet and the paper and pencil. Thank you. So, you've been talking about a news story that you read about recently, and I'd like to discuss some more general questions about this. First of all, how do most people hear about the news in your country?
I think most of the older generation in Germany still hear about news through television broadcasting, but it's not necessarily the same for younger people. Most of my friends, for example, probably hear about the news from their mobiles through social media platforms as their source because they're very popular now. Some people, older people like my parents and my grandparents, still might buy a daily newspaper or one on the weekend. However, I think that more and more older people are also changing their reading habits away from paper-based news to online sources because it's so easy and practical to get the news from the internet.
Do you think people in general are interested in the news?
That depends. I mean, I think people, especially my age, are becoming more and more desensitized to the news, so they don't want to continuously read about it, but as a whole, but they are interested. Older people seem to listen and watch and read news a lot more. Also, it might depend, I suppose, on the kind of news. Young people have different interests from their parents, so they might watch or listen to different kind of news. But I think once you get married, get a serious job and settle down, you tend to want a more serious perspective on life.
Some people think the news is usually negative. Do you agree or disagree?
I think it's really about how much you consume it. I think if you read or listen to the news in moderation, it's helpful. But if you take in too much, you probably create panic and maybe a sense of insecurity in life. Some people, usually older people, only watch the news and not much else. I don't think that can be that good for them. So in this way, it has a negative effect. There are some bits of positive news, like sports, but usually the majority of stuff that you read online is serious and mainly negative.
Let's talk about different types of news. Why do you think people enjoy reading about celebrities?
I think it's probably because it's like a break from serious news, especially at the moment. It's maybe more light-hearted news, but also we're in such a celebrity-focused world right now, where we have complete access to famous people's lives that we think of them and we see them as friends rather than strangers. We're so engrossed in their lives that we continue to invest our time and energy in learning about their hobbies and what they do in, day-to-day life and their private lives because we're interested in celebrity culture. And maybe that's taken over from aspects like traditional customs and other things that we used to place more importance on in day-to-day life.
What is the difference between the type of news in a magazine and in a newspaper?
I guess it depends on the type of magazine, but I assume this is talking about how things in magazines that maybe are focused on celebrity gossip, say, are much more sensational and, everything seems a lot more dramatic. Depending on what newspaper you're reading, they tend to be much more factual and less biased.
How do you think photographs and videos affect us compared to the printed word?
I think in today's society, people take in pictures and videos much more easily. They're easier to consume because we are continuously seeing them on our phones and laptops. I think people also have a shorter attention span today, so again, visuals are a lot easier to digest and absorb, and people are more inclined to spend their time flicking through photos or watching short video clips than reading paragraphs and paragraphs of information.
That is the end of the speaking test. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Today I've evaluated Tobias's speaking exam and gave it an overall score of 8. Now let's look at Tobias's performance and go through each part. Firstly, Tobias did really well with fluency and coherence, earning a score of 8. He spoke smoothly, moving between ideas easily. Tobias used different types of sentences, like simple ones, and a few more complex sentences as well, which made his talk interesting and clear. Moving on to lexical resource, Tobias got a score of 7. While Tobias expressed himself clearly, incorporating more varied words could make his speech even more engaging. For example, he could use different words that mean the same thing to add variety and interest. These are called synonyms. Additionally, Tobias could enhance his vocabulary by including idiom. For example, he could have used phrases like a whole new ball game to describe significant changes, or the tip of the iceberg to suggest that there's much more to explore on this topic. In terms of grammatical range and accuracy, Tobias did great with a score of 8. He always used the right verb tenses, making it easy to understand what he meant. Also, Tobias used extra information in his sentences well, like saying, which can be seen as positive, to add more details. Lastly, pronunciation. Tobias got an 8 here as well, speaking clearly, and he was very easy to understand. But he could improve by talking a bit faster and reducing his pauses. Also focusing on saying some sounds more clearly, like the short I in kit would make his speech even clearer. In conclusion, Tobias did a good job overall with a score of 8. By working on the areas we mentioned and practicing regularly, Tobias could improve even more in his IELTS speaking exam.
Now you can try answering these questions for yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Claire Marshall. Can you tell me your full name, please? Thank you. And what shall I call you? Where are you from? Can I see your identification? Thank you. That's fine. In this first part, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. Now, do you work or are you a student? Do you enjoy your work? Is your work difficult? Do you prefer working to studying? Now let's talk about happiness. What makes you feel happy? Does the weather affect your happiness? Are you happier now than when you were younger? Do you think the things that make you happy will change as you get older? Let's talk about clothes. Do you enjoy buying new clothes? Do you ever borrow other people's clothes? Do you like the same types of clothes now as when you were younger? Why are so many people interested in fashion? Thank you. Now I'm going to give you a topic. I want you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you have 1 minute to plan what to say. You can make notes if you wish. Do you understand? Here is some paper and a pencil for making notes. And here is your topic. I'd like you to describe a news story you have heard about recently. All right? Remember, you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, so don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start now, please? Thank you. Have you told other people about this news story? Thank you. Please give me the booklet and the paper and pencil. Thank you. So, you've been talking about a news story that you read about recently, and I'd like to discuss some more general questions about this. First of all, how do most people hear about the news in your country? Do you think people in general are interested in the news? Some people think the news is usually negative. Do you agree or disagree? Let's talk about different types of news. Why do you think people enjoy reading about celebrities? What is the difference between the type of news in a magazine and in a newspaper? How do you think photographs and videos affect us compared to the printed word? That is the end of the speaking test. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to Progress to IELTS for more helpful tips. Happy studying!